Watch this figure carefully. £22 million. That's how much a gang of 7 people stole from British taxpayers. Not with hacking, not with cybercrime, not with phishing emails. Something much simpler. Your VAT payments. Every time you bought groceries, every time you paid a builder, every time you filled your car. 20% VAT. Money meant for the NHS, schools, roads, public services. For 5 years, that money didn't go to the government. It went to what prosecutors now call the construction mafia. 7 people, 7 roles, one massive operation. Daniel Newton, Philip Bailey, Sean Dean, Lee Hudson, Sarah Gillard, Bradley Mortimer, Kevin Ratcliffe. And here's the part that sent shockwaves through investigators. This wasn't just tax fraud. Hidden underneath the fake payroll companies, HMRC discovered something else. A £2 million drug network, funded directly by your VAT money. February 4th, 2025. All 7 sentenced. Over 33 years in prison combined. The construction mafia finally brought down. But the money, most of it's gone. And the system that let this happen for 5 years, still running. Before we break this down, if you care about where your tax money really goes, hit subscribe. We expose the stories the mainstream won't touch, and what you're about to hear will make you rethink the entire tax system. Let's get into how 7 people in Kent turned the UK tax system into their personal money laundering operation. 2017, Tunbridge, Kent. Daniel Newton is 33 years old. He's an accountant, not a criminal, at least not on paper. He runs a payroll company, legitimate, registered with HM Revenue and Customs, handles tax and national insurance for construction workers across the southeast. Philip Bailey is 31. He's in construction recruitment, also legitimate, also registered. He supplies workers to building sites, hotels, housing developments, infrastructure projects. They meet, they talk, and they realize something interesting. Construction firms pay a lot of money in VAT, and they pay a lot in something called CES contributions, Construction Industry Scheme, deductions taken from workers' wages that are supposed to go straight to HMRC. Millions of pounds, every month, passing through payroll companies like Newton's, on their way to the government. Except, what if they didn't make it to the government? What if they just stopped in the middle, in accounts controlled by Newton and Bailey? And so the construction mafia was born. Here's how it worked. Newton and Bailey set up fake payroll companies. On paper, they looked completely legitimate. Registered with HMRC. Proper business addresses. Everything official. Construction firms would hire these companies to handle their payroll. The firms would pay over the money, VAT, CIS contributions, national insurance, everything the law requires. And then, nothing. The money just sat there, in accounts controlled by the gang. Newton would file the paperwork, make it look like everything was being paid to HMRC. But the actual money, never sent, month after month, year after year, £22 million, just taken. But here's where it gets really organised. Because Newton and Bailey weren't working alone. Sean Dean, 41 years old, co-founder of the operation. He helped set up the fake companies, created the paperwork, made everything look legitimate. Lee Hudson, 56, office worker. He processed the false invoices, made sure the books looked clean, kept HMRC from asking questions. And then there were the cash couriers. Sarah Gillard, 41, Bailey's partner. She physically moved the cash, bags of money, collected from construction sites, delivered to, well, we'll get to that, Bradley Mortimer, 39, another courier. Same job, moving cash. Lots of it. In person. Because when you're stealing £22 million, some of it needs to move in ways that can't be traced electronically. But the most interesting member, Kevin Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe was 43, and he ran a legitimate construction company. He was their inside man, the bridge between the criminal operation and the legitimate construction industry. Ratcliffe would direct his own construction work through Newton and Bailey's fake payroll companies. And in return, he got kickbacks, cash payments, a percentage of the stolen VAT, for helping them access more construction firms, more victims, more money. Prosecutors later described him as greasing the wheels of the entire operation. 7 people, each with a specific role: accountant, recruiter, office manager, inside man, cash couriers, all working together, all stealing from you. Quick question before we continue. You pay VAT on almost everything you buy, 20%, on your groceries, on your bills, on services. You're told it's going to public services, and for 5 years, £22 million of it went to a criminal gang instead. Drop a comment and tell me, how does that happen? And if you're finding this as infuriating as we did researching it, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people see what's actually happening with their money. Now here's where this investigation took a turn nobody expected. Because Kent police weren't just investigating tax fraud, they started noticing something else. Cash movements, large amounts, going to people who had nothing to do with construction payroll. They started watching, following the money, tracking the couriers, and they uncovered something that changed everything. A £2 million drug supply network operating across Kent, Sussex, Surrey, and Essex. Cocaine, Class A drugs, being distributed through criminal associates of the construction mafia. Your VAT money wasn't just being stolen. It was funding organised drug crime across southeast England. Prosecutors couldn't prove the gang directly ran the drug network, but the money links, undeniable. £2 million tied to drug supply, laundered through the same channels, connected to the same people. The construction mafia wasn't just tax fraud, it was organised crime, on multiple levels. And it was all funded by the 20% you pay on your shopping. So how did they finally get caught? HMRC eventually noticed something was wrong. Payroll companies receiving millions in VAT and CIS contributions, but not passing the money on. Red flags started appearing. Late in 2020, years after the fraud had started, they launched an investigation, quietly. Kent police joined in. Surveillance, covert recordings, financial analysis, building a case. 2022, the raids began. Officers executed search warrants across Kent and London. Newton's office in Tonbridge, Bailey's address in Ashford, Dean's premises, Mortimer's location, all hit simultaneously. Inside, evidence, paperwork showing the fake companies, bank statements proving the money wasn't being sent to HMRC, recordings of conversations discussing the operation, and most damning of all, evidence of the cash courier system, Gillard and Mortimer physically moving money, in bags, in cars, from construction sites to criminal associates. 7 arrests, 7 charges, and a trial that would expose the full scale of what prosecutors called sophisticated, organised, and utterly brazen fraud. Maidstone Crown Court. All 7 defendants stood trial. The evidence was overwhelming. HMRC had traced £22 million through the fake payroll companies. Kent police had surveillance footage of the cash couriers. They had covert recordings of Newton and Bailey discussing the operation. The defence. Each defendant tried to shift blame. Newton said he was just doing what Bailey told him. Bailey said he didn't know the money wasn't being sent to HMRC. Dean claimed he thought everything was legitimate. Hudson said he was just processing paperwork. Gillard and Mortimer. They admitted moving cash but said they didn't know it was criminal proceeds. Ratcliffe claimed the kickbacks were legitimate business arrangements. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty, all 7. Conspiracy to cheat the public revenue. Money laundering. Fraud. February 4th, 2025. Sentencing. Judge Julian Smith looked at each defendant and delivered sentences that reflected the scale of their crimes. Daniel Newton, the criminal accountant, the man who made it all work on paper, 9 years and 4 months. Sean Dean, co-founder, 7 years. Philip Bailey, the recruiter who brought construction firms into the scheme, 6 years and 3 months. Lee Hudson, the office worker who kept the books clean, 5 years. Bradley Mortimer, the cash courier who physically moved the money, 3 years and 6 months. Kevin Ratcliffe, the construction boss who took kickbacks and directed business their way, 27 months. And Sarah Gillard, Bailey's partner, the other cash courier, 2 years, suspended. She walked out of court that day, combined. Over 33 years behind bars. Judge Smith told them directly, "You treated the tax system as your personal cash machine. You stole money meant for public services, money that should have gone to the NHS, to schools, to infrastructure, and you diverted it for your own enrichment and, in some cases, to fund serious criminal activity. £22 million, stolen over 5 years. And here's what should make you furious. HMRC knew something was wrong in late 2020, but the fraud had been running since 2017. 3 years where red flags should have been raised earlier. 3 years where millions continued to flow into the gang's accounts. Why did it take so long? HMRC's monitoring systems, their checks on payroll companies, their verification that VAT was actually being paid over. All of it. Too slow, too weak, too easy to bypass. Newton and Bailey ran multiple fake companies. When one started attracting attention, they just shut it down and open another. New name, new registration, same fraud, and HMRC. They'd have to start investigating from scratch. For 5 years, it worked. And what about the construction firms who used these payroll companies? Some of them had no idea they were being used in a fraud. They paid the money over in good faith, thought it was going to HMRC. Found out years later they'd been part of a massive scam. But others? The investigation suggested some firms knew something wasn't right. The fees were too low. The service was too convenient. The lack of proper HMRC confirmation was suspicious. But they kept using the fake companies anyway. Because it was cheaper. Because it was easier. Because asking questions might mean losing a good deal. Kevin Ratcliffe certainly knew. He was getting kickbacks, cash payments for directing work through the gang's fake companies. He knew exactly what was happening. And he did it anyway. For the money. Now here's the part that should terrify you. Of the £22 million stolen, most of it's gone. Spent, moved, hidden, laundered through the drug network, converted to assets that are hard to trace, dispersed across multiple accounts and countries. HMRC is pursuing what they call confiscation proceedings, trying to recover what they can, seizing assets, freezing accounts. But realistically, you're looking at maybe 3 to 5 million recovered, if you're lucky. The rest, it's in properties owned by associates. It's in offshore accounts. It's been spent on luxury goods that have since been sold on. It's in the drug supply chain that was operating alongside the fraud. It's gone. And what about the construction firms? The ones who unknowingly paid VAT and CIS contributions that never reached HMRC. In some cases, they were held liable. HMRC came back and said, "You need to pay that again. You didn't use a legitimate payroll company, so the money you paid doesn't count. Imagine that. You paid your VAT in good faith. The payroll company you hired stole it, and HMRC says you have to pay it again. Because you should have checked more carefully. Some firms went bankrupt. Others are still fighting HMRC in court. All of them victims of the construction mafia. Here's the bigger picture. This gang operated for 5 years. They stole £22 million. They funded a £2 million drug network, and they did it using a system that's supposed to be monitored by HMRC. The same system that collects your VAT every day, on everything you buy. If this gang could run fake payroll companies for 5 years before being caught, how many others are doing the same thing right now? How many more construction mafias are operating across the UK? How much more money is being stolen from the taxes you pay? HMRC says they've improved their monitoring. They've strengthened checks on payroll companies. They are working to prevent similar fraud in the future. But they said the same thing after the last major VAT fraud, and the one before that. And yet here we are. Again, £22 million stolen, with most of it never coming back. The construction mafia is in prison, most of them, for now. Newton got 9 years. He'll probably serve 5 or 6. Then he's out, with whatever money he managed to hide, starting over, maybe under a new name, maybe in a new business, maybe doing the same thing all over again. Bailey got 6 years, Dean got 7, Hudson got 5, Mortimer got 3.5, Ratcliffe got 27 months, and Gillard, she walked. 33 years total. Sounds like a lot, but divided among 7 people, and with early release. Most of them will be out in half that time. And £22 million of your money. It's funding their next scheme. Share with your friends and family. They deserve to know where their VAT payments actually go, or more accurately, where they don't go. Subscribe if you haven't already. Next week, we're covering another case where the tax system was used as a criminal enterprise and nobody noticed until it was too late. Thanks for watching. Stay informed. And maybe start asking your builder more questions about their payroll company.